Hello Summoners and welcome back to another ProGuides patch rundown. My name is Christoph and today I'll be going over all the changes that were made in patch 9.11. I'll cover all the details including a tier list for each role that was made by our in-house analysts and partnered pro players. If you missed out on our mid-patch analysis video for patch 9.10, then you probably haven't heard of our new feature in our tier list, which is the D tier. Adding the D tier will help give you guys the most accurate and best tier lists available. There were a ton of changes made this patch which raised a lot of questions. Is Yuumi broken now? Is Zac getting reworked? Is this patch going to completely gut low elo jungling? Don't worry, we got you guys covered and we'll answer all these questions in the video. But remember, since the patch just hit the live server, please do keep in mind that these tier lists are purely predictions. We encourage all our viewers to comment on our tier list below and say if you disagree or agree with us on certain champion placements. Also, as a reminder, there will be an updated tier list video 1 week into the patch where we use fresh statistics to give you guys the most accurate tier lists available. And guys, right before we begin, make sure to check out ProGuides.com if you want to see huge improvements to your rank. The link is down below. We have a new feature called InstaPro, which gives you on-demand 24/7 coaching by the best of the best. Check it out using the description link below. Alright, now without further ado, let's get right into it. Starting with the top lane. Jace has been too reliable of a pick in pro play despite being in a comfortable spot for solo queue. Given his strong early game, Riot's balance team have decided to nerf his scaling in the late game so he can no longer become that unstoppable 1v9 monster. His Q, Shock Blast, will have a huge nerf to its base damage in the mid to late game, followed by another huge nerf to its damage ratio. These nerfs are going to affect Jace a ton, and he'll no longer be able to hold a solid stance in the meta. Jace will be placed in our top lane B tier for patch 9.11, but he's definitely going to be on the brink for making the C tier for our mid-patch analysis video. We'll keep you updated next week. The top lane tier list sees a ton of changes, although there was only one balance change to the top lane this patch. Our in-house analysts and partnered pro players have made a few adjustments based off of the difference in win rates from last patch. Sitting in our S tier, we have Aatrox, Jax, Darius, Urgot, Vladimir, Renekton, and yup, she's back, Riven. Even after the nerfs made to Riven, she still remains at the top of our tier lists. Although her win rate dropped a significant amount after the nerfs, it's slowly climbing up to where it was previously. Our challenger analysts highly recommend that you jump back on the Riven hype train. Her win rate will likely increase even more over time. If you're interested in playing Riven at the highest level, then please check out BoxBox's Riven guide on ProGuides.com using the description link below. Akali remains in our C tier for the top lane despite being one of the best solo laners for competitive play. She holds the second lowest win rate in the top lane after Ryze and will likely drop down to D tier due to some nerfs on her kit this patch. We'll go over these nerfs later on in this video, so make sure to stay tuned. On to the jungle. Amumu recently received buffs in patch 9.8, which skyrocketed his win rate to 55% in gold and below. In order to put Amumu back in check, his passive, Cursed Touch, will have its bonus true damage lowered from 13% to 10%. This is a pretty big nerf and will impact Amumu's stance in the meta for sure. He will be placed in our B tier for the jungle this patch, but we'll see if that changes in our mid-patch update. Gragas has been struggling in the meta the past few months, but is looking to receive a bit of love from the balance team. His base health, health growth, and attack damage have been increased by a decent amount, and these changes will help his durability and early clear speed. Gragas will remain in our C tier, but might make the push to B tier next week. Karthus has been too powerful ever since he made his way into the jungle. Being able to hard farm with an insanely fast clear speed while also impacting the map with a global ultimate made him one of the best junglers in the game for both solo queue and competitive play. To keep Karthus in check, he will receive a huge nerf this patch to his R's base damage and scaling. Karthus will drop to our B tier for patch 9.11. In patch 9.10, Master Yi was changed to increase satisfaction for players in all elos. Riot's balance team wanted to create more opportunities for skillful players, but ended up making the Wuju Bladesman a bit too strong. In order to make Master Yi more balanced for all ranks, he will no longer receive 8% bonus attack speed at level 1, and his Q, Alpha Strike, will have its damage on the same target lowered by 10%. Master Yi will remain in our A tier for patch 9.11, and he'll be a great pick for this patch. Rammus has been one of the most underrated yet broken junglers in the game due to his strong gank potential and high damage. In patch 9.11, Rammus will receive a nerf to his passive, Spiked Shell, which will now deal 10 damage at all levels. His R, Tremors, will also receive a significant nerf to its damage per second. Rammus will be dropped to our jungle A tier for patch 9.11. Warwick has been struggling in the meta for quite some time, receiving some buffs in previous patches. To help give Warwick a solid stance in the meta, his Q, Jaws of the Beast, will have its healing increased by a significant amount during the mid to late game. Warwick will remain in our jungle C tier for patch 9.11. These buffs don't target his weak points in the game. Most players prioritize maxing Warwick's Blood Hunt rather than Jaws of the Beast, so the mid to late game healing increase will not have much of an impact on the outcome of a game. Zac had a rework on his kit back in 2017, but is looking to have some of his newer abilities reverted. His Q, Stretching Strikes, will have its slow reduced by 20%, followed by a buff to its cooldown during the mid to late game. Next, his W, Unstable Matter, will be reverted back to its old number value and will do 2% of the target's max health per 100 ability power. Lastly, his ultimate has been reverted to Let's Bounce and will now bounce 4 times on cast with a 1-second delay between each bounce. Each bounce does a decent amount of damage and will knock up enemies for 1 second. Zac can move during the duration of his ultimate and gains ramping movement speed as well. It's hard to predict if Zac will hold a solid stance in the meta after these changes, but for now, our analysts have decided to leave him in the C tier. Before we show you the tier list, I'd like to mention that there is a wonderful Night Blue Jungle course on ProGuides.com where you can learn to become that unpredictable early game monster that everyone fears. The course has everything you need to know in order to completely take over a game and tilt every player on the opposing team. If you want to become that unstoppable threat, then go check out our website using the link below. The Jungle tier list sees a lot of changes compared to the one we had last week. In our S tier, we welcome 2 new members, Evelynn and Vi. These 2 champions have been moved up to our S tier due to strong picks such as Karthus and Rammus dropping down to our A and B tier. Our S tier consists of Hecarim, Evelynn, Vi, Nunu, and Elise. These 5 champions are a notch above the rest and will give you the competitive edge you need to win more games in solo queue. For patch 9.11, our challenger analysts recommend you pick up Taliyah in the jungle. Although she's only a B tier pick right now, her win rate has been steadily increasing for the past few patches, and a few pro players have been spamming her in solo queue. Try her out and let us know how that goes down below. Next up, we have the mid lane. Akali has one of the lowest win rates in solo queue, but is definitely a problem for competitive play. In order to lower the discrepancy between pro play and solo queue, her passive, Assassin's Mark, will have its energy refund nerfed by a small amount, followed by a huge damage nerf to its AP and AD ratio. You'll definitely feel how big these nerfs are the next time you play her, so be cautious when you pick her in ranked. Akali will remain in our mid lane C tier for this patch, but we'll see if those nerfs affect her even more in the mid-patch update. Echo will receive a small quality of life change this patch to his E, Phase Dive. Phase Dive will now consistently basic attack at the regular cadence instead of having to wait for its animation to finish. Echo will remain untouched in our A tier. There were only minor changes made to the mid lane tier list for patch 9.11. In our S tier, we have Talon, Zed, Ahri, Malzahar, Vladimir, and Fizz. These 6 picks are the best mid laners on the Rift right now, and you should definitely learn how to play a handful of these to get more wins in ranked. Karthus has been dropped to our C tier due to the nerfs on his ultimate, Requiem, and Akali remains in the same spot despite some nerfs. Some notable A tier picks for this patch are Sylas, Aurelion Sol, and Morgana. These champions are so close to making the push to S tier, and you'll likely see them in future tier lists as well. For patch 9.11, our challenger analysts recommend you pick up Taliyah in the mid lane. Although she's rarely played, Taliyah has been making a good comeback into the meta recently, and her win rate in the mid lane is definitely above average. Give her a try out and let us know how that goes down below. Draven's recently seen a huge spike in his win rate due to a bug on his ultimate, Whirling Death. For patch 9.11, a bug fix has been made which will now decrease his ultimate's damage for each target hit. This change will drop Draven back into our A tier for now, but we'll keep a close eye on him for next week. The AD carry tier list for patch 9.11 sees a few adjustments from our previous one. In our S tier, we have Sivir, Kai'Sa, Ezreal, and Jinx. In our A tier, we welcome 2 new members, Draven and Xayah. Draven has been dropped to our A tier due to the bug fix, and our challenger analysts recommend that you pick up Xayah in the bottom lane. Xayah has been getting stronger and stronger each patch and is even an S tier candidate if she's picked with the right partner, Rakan. Like we mentioned earlier, her win rate has increased since MSI, and she will likely be a great pick this patch. Alright, finally on to supports. Galio has been a go-to favorite for many professional support players. In order to balance out his play rate between support and mid lane, Galio will receive a few changes this patch. His W will have its base damage lowered, followed by a buff to its AP scaling. In addition to that, his E, Justice Punch, will have its damage lowered by a decent amount during the early to mid game. Galio will remain in our support B tier for patch 9.11, but might drop down to C tier next week. Janna has recently felt more like a poke mage instead of a peeling and shielding support champion. In order to shift her identity back to a peeling machine, her W will have its base damage nerfed significantly, followed by a buff to its cooldown. On top of that, her E, Eye of the Storm, will now have its cooldown decreased by 20% for each ability that slows an enemy or knocks them up. Eye of the Storm's cooldown will also be decreased, and its shield value will be increased by a small amount. Janna will be moved up to our S tier supports for patch 9.11, and she'll become so much more annoying to play against. Yumi received a ton of quality of life changes and bug fixes for patch 9.11. This will not affect her stance in the meta, but she'll definitely feel more satisfying to play. The support tier list remains pretty similar to the list we had at the start of last patch. In our S tier, we have Thresh, Pyke, Morgana, Nami, and 2 new members, Lux and Janna. Nautilus is still the best support in the game and is sitting by himself in our S+ tier. He's been OP for the past few patches, so make sure to add him to your champion pool. For patch 9.11, our challenger analysts recommend you pick up Lux in the bottom lane. She's one of the most underrated supports in the game right now, and her Aftershock build is still the go-to for most players. Yumi received a hotfix last patch and her win rate skyrocketed from 36% to 43%. Our in-house analysts believe that her win rate will rise to 46, maybe even 48% within the next 2 weeks, and she'll hold a pretty solid stance in the meta. Lastly, the Little Demon Tristana skin will be available on the Rift during patch 9.11, so make sure to save your RP. This skin looks pretty awesome. That's it for our patch 9.11 rundown video. If you enjoyed watching this video, then please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to our channel to be notified for our next one. Make sure to check out our website if you want to see drastic improvements to your rank in League of Legends. Just use the description link below. The second part of our meta-analysis video will be available next week, which will give you guys the most accurate tier list available using fresh statistics. Thank you guys so much for watching, good luck in your next few games, and we'll see you on the Rift.